So welcome back to Everyday Alex. It's been a while since we had regular uploads. We've been experimenting with some live episodes. I think we'll continue to play with some of those. But the goal is to be back with 5 days a week, regular episodes here on YouTube. And I'm excited for this week's episode, today's episode of Wellness Wednesday. I suddenly realised that I actually recorded 3 episodes in the days before the lockdown came in, and I sort of forgot that I had these on my computer. This is a 3-part series with Sanna Anderson from the nutrition team at the Optimum Health Clinic, where she and I explored together why digestion is so important in fatigue-related conditions, particularly ME, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. And in this first video, we talk about specifically why digestion and gut health matters. In next week's video, we'll get into some of the basic diet recommendations. And then in the following week, we'll get into some of the testing that we do to discover and decode what may be going on or may be going wrong with someone's digestive system. So here we are, we're back. Hopefully we're going to maintain the regular schedule. Here is Sanna. So Sanna, in this video we're talking about why digestion matters so much in chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, ME and that group of conditions. So maybe just as a starting point, why does it matter? Why is it so critical to the work that we do?
Well, first of all, I suppose we are the nutrition department, so anything that we do has something to do with food, nutrition, nourishing the body, and the route through which we do it is via the digestive system. So there's the old saying, you are what you eat, and somebody very cleverly sort of expanded on it and said, well, you're not just what you eat, you're what you digest and absorb, and it is very true. So you could be having the most beautiful balanced diet full of nutrient dense foods, but if you're not breaking those foods down and absorbing them, then right at the cellular level you still might be sort of undernourished or short of nutrients.
And I think it's in a sense, it's a very tempting thing that people get very fixated on the food and the supplement side of it. And as you say, they forget that they could just be having very, very expensive poo, for want of a better way of putting it. That in a sense, that absorption piece is really important. Also, there's a number of different factors that affect digestive health, right? Like it's not as simple as just one thing. So maybe just touch on some of the things that are important in that kind of initial part of the digestive process.
Sure. I mean, I think probably one of the biggest things I tend to concentrate on, certainly initially, if we look at our client group, is the effect of long-term stress on the digestive system. And to be honest, it's not just the CFS client group. I think kind of the world we live in, it probably is an issue for most people to some extent, but it certainly is something that we come across quite a lot as we are doing the initial assessment of our clients. Basically, keep it very, very simple, but if you think of the stress response being sort of evolved from the fight or flight kind of survival process, if you like, if you are fighting the saber-toothed tiger in the jungle, millions of years ago, then digesting your previous meal really wasn't kind of on the top of the list of important things to maintain energy for. So it's actually exactly the opposite. You can direct energy away from that, spare it for something that will help you survive the attack. Trouble is, we're not in the jungle with the saber-toothed tiger anymore. We are kind of living with the stress on a daily basis, often for years and years on end. And that long-term stress will continue to have that sort of suppressing effect on our digestive system. I mean, if you actually look at the biochemistry behind it, you can see that our digestive enzyme output slows down, hydrochloric acid output, which is stomach acid, that helps activate a lot of the enzymes, helps denature, break down proteins. All of that slows down. which basically then reduces our ability to break down foods. And therefore, if you've got larger food particles, that tends to also then hinder absorption and delivery, again, right to the cellular level.
And the sort of part of the end result of a lot of this is less nutrients end up delivered where they need to be. And I guess this is an important point where sometimes people can get quite fixated on particular aspects of treatment, saying, I need to fix that piece, but sort of negate the importance of this overall kind of initial piece that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm quite a visual person. I tend to sort of describe it to people as a pyramid, and you have to get the sort of the base blocks of the pyramid in place first. And to me, if we are looking at CFS, for example, something like the mitochondrial function, which is far more exciting, to be honest, than maybe looking at digestive function and, are you breaking things down? Are you absorbing them? But that sits much, much further up that pyramid, because if you sort of turn it the other way around, if you have suffered from long-term stress, if you are struggling to break foods down, if you're struggling to absorb them, you will then be struggling to deliver them, to your cells within which those mitochondria lie, and they're needing those nutrients. So yes, we could, if we wanted to test mitochondrial function right at the beginning of our sort of treatment journey, if you like, you'd probably find that the test will come back saying, okay, yes, the function is not perfect, not ideal. We can look at where the gaps are. We can look at sort of nutrient deficiencies. But actually, it's again, I guess, one of my favorite questions. Why? Why is that happening? Is it not necessarily simply, there's often different factors, but is one of the big sort of answers to that question, why is it, again, that you're not absorbing and delivering the nutrients where they are needed? So you do need to go through those sort of slightly not so exciting sounding steps first, before you get sort of further up the pyramid. And actually, I suppose the good news in some ways is when you lay that foundation work, you might not need to go into testing the mitochondria, because as you are starting to deliver the nutrients where they are needed, you may be sort of restarting and normalizing that function.
I think this is why the sequence within which we do things is really important. As you say, people can sometimes come in and say, no, but I just want to do that piece because that's the piece that sort of in their mind makes sense, that, well, I'm not making energy on a cellular level. I need more raw ingredients to do that, or I need to find the blockages to that. But actually, as you say, if we're not breaking down food, then it may be actually much more simple than sometimes we might think. Maybe also say a little bit just about the immune system and how that's also very closely linked to the microbiome.
Yes, so that's another, I suppose, if I talk about long-term stress, I mean, if we look at sort of very rough kind of subgrouping of our client base, there is a sort of stress trauma subgroup, but another big subgroup is what we often call the immune system subgroup, where when you start listening to the client history, there's often maybe a viral trigger to their CFS, or even a history of frequent infections even before the CFS was triggered. So somebody whose immune system perhaps for quite a long time has already been operating at, by the sounds of it, suboptimal basis. Again, we do have very sophisticated testing available to look for different types of sort of low-grade infectious agents and so on. But actually, yet again, if we look at the digestive system, and particularly the microbiome, so the bacterial sort of communities that live particularly in our large intestine, I mean, research has kind of consistently shown that about 60 to 70%, I mean, it depends a little bit which publication you read, but quite a high percentage of our immune system is solely dependent on the health of that microbiome, so health of the bacterial colonies that we host in our large intestine.
So taking the time to really understand digestion, what's working, what isn't working, and addressing those fundamentals really is critical as a kind of foundation. Using your analogy of the pyramid, it's sort of the base level upon which everything else then can be built.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, because I think when, if you start thinking that, well, that sounds very, very unexciting and sort of, we just want to get in there with the right supplements, as you say, firstly, you don't want to create sort of very expensive poo or something, but it's also, this is the way to give your body the tools to start healing itself. The microbiome, those bacteria, we have developed that system for a good reason. It is there to help regulate our immune system, and so if we look after that, then we are sort of, I don't know, how would you say, we are giving the reins back to your body in some ways, to help you get better.
Yeah, the body has an amazing ability to heal, but we need to give it the conditions and the support to help.
Yes, I think that's probably better said.
Well, Sanna, that's really helpful, thank you. And I think for people watching, hopefully that sort of clarified why we start where we start and why that's so important. So for now, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Part 2 will come out a week today, next Wednesday. Part 3 the week after. So do make sure, if you haven't already, that you subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. Click the notification bell. That's the best way of being notified as new episodes are released. Now, part of the reason why I've been a little quiet on the uploads is I've been working on sort of this year's big project, the Trauma and Mind Body Super Conference. If you watched last year's Fatigue Super Conference, you've got a bit of a sense of the format. We've got over 90, yes, I said that correctly, 90 of the world's leading experts on trauma from many different perspectives. So that will be launched hopefully tomorrow or otherwise Friday. So make sure that you're subscribed, and I can't wait to tell you all about this. Thanks for watching.